Why, hi there, it's Uncle Ron, and I have seen a couple requests on doing a video on, oh, look, the cat's staring right at you, on mental health and sports replay gaming. And I've taken a couple days to think about what it is I exactly would want to say about that. And with the recent passing of, let's say, Ozzy Osbourne and some of you having a little more personal experiences, I think that once again, the pressures of the outside world or the sadness around with the outside world, it's just kind of stepped in, and you guys will be going to do a little more gaming. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. I think that gaming is a major help when you are dealing with stress. And I think you guys realize that. And let me share with you a few reasons why I think why that is. I know that this is a hobby that's just dripping and laden with nostalgia, and we've talked about in the past about, it's never going to mean more to you, sports, than it did at 14 years old, and that because there weren't any other stresses going on in your life and all that. And I realize as I've worked with an old friend recently who is going public with some of the things that they went through as a child, that there was a lot of stresses when we were kids, anywhere in that 8 to 14 year old, 8 to 16-year-old range. And being able to figure out how to cope with whatever was going on around us kind of interacts with that era, figuring out when whatever it is that we got into meant the most to us, because whatever was going on in our own lives at that particular point in time, and a lot of it wasn't very good at all, whether it was self-inflicted or your parents were fighting, or just name whatever bad thing that could happen around you. For those of us who followed sports growing up, those heroes were there. They were either on the radio at night, or if you lived in a city, maybe on TV every afternoon or every evening, or you picked up the paper in the morning to see how your favorite player did. And it was your way at the time of escaping whatever it is that you didn't necessarily like about what was going on around you. You did that with music too. Whatever your favorite bands were, that became, geez, if so and so can learn how to play a left-handed bass, then maybe I can learn to play a left-handed bass. The narrator steps in and goes, Ron never figured out how to play a left-handed bass and wouldn't even know what a bass guitar is if you showed one to him. But anyway, that's not here there or there important. So those formative years, and this is regardless of gender, when you have a better understanding of where you are in your world, are looking for something outside of your immediate world to look up to look into, to figure out what you want to do, or amazed by whatever it is. I mean, let's face it. If you're, let's say, a hockey fan and wanted to, and Patrick Waugh or Billy Smith or Bernie Parent or you name it, we can go back to Terry Sawchuk, Marty Brodeur. If those were your biggest childhood heroes, it is you sitting in amazement as someone is taking a piece of frozen rubber and shooting it at you with a mask on after a certain year at 75, 80 miles an hour, or if you're on the other end of a shot from Al McInnes or L.I. Afraidy, upwards of 100 miles an hour, and it's your job to sit there and put a glove up and stop it or bounce it off of you so it doesn't get in the goal. Yeah, that's a pretty amazing thing, and you could say, wow, you'd have to be either an idiot to do that, or wow, that sounds like the perfect thing to do. Again, whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be sports based, but since this is pretty much sports gaming, yes. So you learn to be amazed by what you saw around you. A Fran Tarkington or a Roger Staubach dancing around a 250-pound lineman running at you at full tilt that wants to bury you in the turf. Nope, I'm going to get away from that. I'm going to find my receiver in stride. We're going to get that first down. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to take this little steel-shafted club, maybe with a wooden head, and I'm going to drive this little ball 300 yards down the middle of this tight fairway. And I'm never going to miss a putt inside 10 feet. Okay, Jack Nicklaus, that sort of thing. So as we became aware of things going on around the outside world, and generally it would be, depending on what part of the country you're in, primarily baseball, football, with some basketball and some hockey thrown in, you became amazed by it. You became absolutely amazed by the fact that Jim Rice could take a round bat and smash a round ball 350 feet into a net above a 25-foot wall, or 37-foot wall, whatever the monster is there. Yeah, that is pretty amazing and pretty special, and wouldn't you like to be able to do that? And so you grow an attraction to that team or movie star or rock band or country singer or whatever your jam is. You find that person or that group becomes larger in life, because no matter what's going on in your life, they can do necessarily no wrong. We're talking then, not necessarily today when everything's 24 hours and blah, 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 blah. And the time that you spent either watching that game or listening to that record or reading that book or reading that magazine column or whatever it is that you got excited about was time well spent. It was also time away from the problem or problems or bad things going on in your life that you couldn't necessarily figure out how to make better, because you're in that in-between stage where it's not necessarily mommy and daddy giving you a hug every time that goes there. You might be mad at your parents for whatever reason. They wouldn't let you do this. You didn't have the money to do that. They're beating the crap out of each other. I mean, any number of things. So your parents aren't necessarily the superheroes that you thought that they were, and you're not quite old enough yet to cause too many of your own problems, because trust me, we all create our own problems. So these people do a little more, become mythical in the way that they do things, because it is amazing. You look at them, they take you away from whatever it is that you're not liking at that particular point in time. And to quote the Vermont broadcasting legend Ken Squire, NASCAR Hall of Famer that he is, when he talked about stock car drivers, he talked about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And if you're talking about driving in a pack of cars at Talladega at 200 miles an hour around a high bank and not crash into each other, that is the very definition of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You take a round bat and you hit a round ball. It is ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Find that receiver that's double covered. Find the open shooter when he's on a basketball court, when you've got someone, surrounding you. That is the whole thing with sports, is ordinary people doing extraordinary things, at least to you at a certain age. And let me tell you, today, ordinary people do that extraordinary things all the time. You can be amazed at what goes on when you watch a ball game or go to a concert or whatever. But what you don't see at 12 and 13 or 14 years old are the hours of practice that went in, the hundreds of hours of failures, the times they wanted to quit, or in Michael Jordan's case, not even make this junior high basketball team. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me, but it is what it was. And so, yes, so they go through and they become larger in life, and they can really do no wrong for you as far as that. And the time that you spend from either, watching Mel Allen do This Week in Baseball in the summer, or Brent Musburger letting you look in live at Soldier Field on a cold December day in the 80s, yes, it was time that you would learn to relish, because it did mean everything to you at that particular point, and you were going to see something that was going to make you very happy or very upset, especially if you lived in New England, because we weren't allowed to have nice things in the 80s with our sports teams outside of the Celtics. That's not here for there, though. So, yes, so you draw an attachment to that, and some of us learned that we could play games that involved these things, and we're not talking Madden or any of the other, modern version of sports console games, but you take a pair of dice, you roll to see, can Jim Rice not hit into that 6-4? Whittaker, Trammell, Evans. Great. 6-4-3. Can Rice win the game? And the other thing that you learn once you get into sports gaming is that these heroes that you had growing up, the Derek Sandersons, the Guy Lafleurs, the Willis Reeds, the Joe Theismanns, the Billy Kilmers, the Craig Stadlers, the Fuzzy Zellers, whatever it is, the Dale Earnhardts, you get to the point when you pull out these games and learn to play them that they're playing exclusively for you. They're always going to be 22 years old, 25 years old, 28 years old. They're always going to be in the best shape. They're always going to be in the prime of their careers. And they play for you, the player. Doesn't always work out the way you want, but let's face it. You were pulling them out, and yes, some of that obviously is nostalgia, but it goes back to a time where you're learning to figure this stuff out. And so today, when you pull out a game after a stressful situation or share a game with someone, a kid, who maybe undergo, I think the example given was a loss of a parent or a grandparent. So the kid was a grandparent. So a game got pulled out, and the kid got the chance to take their mind off of the immediate tragedy that had unfolded around them, learn something, spend time with a family member who was paying attention to them, and learn a couple things. For the person that was showing the game, don't know what they were, not looking what they were actually pulling out, chances are they were going back to a time when they were young, thinking that this rush of dopamine that they get is going to help me get through the next day or two, hour, even minute or second in a positive manner. And so, yes, it is one of the best things that you can do for your mental health. And so, why is that? Well, first of all, in a real stressful situation such as the pandemic or the loss of a family member or a crisis that you may have created or someone around you has created that you need to learn how to deal with, and you reach back into your bag of tricks and seasons and pull out something from when you were figuring this stuff out on your own and want to spend some time with some people who never wronged you or didn't wrong you too much anyway, that it not only is it the dopamine rush of making you feel better, but a couple things. A, it brings you back to a simpler time when you learned how to figure this stuff out and how to move forward. It didn't matter if not everything is going to be gaming related. It could be pulling out the same album over and listening to that same song, wearing out the groove on the cheap cassette tape to listen to Day Tripper or Billy Joel or Pink Floyd or whatever it is to make you feel better because it numbs the pain. It gets you thinking about something else besides what the immediate aftermath of what it is that you've seen, and gets you moving forward. Because if you move forward, then you might have a snowball's chance of trying to resolve in your own way what's going on. So in a gaming community, you pull out a favorite team, a favorite matchup, a favorite player. Is a Bruins fan going to want to do too many men on the ice? No. They might lose that. Are you going to take that Bruin team out against the North Stars or the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Hartford Whalers? Oh, yeah, exactly. You want to spend some quality time with those people again, regardless of who they are, and you want to put them in a situation where they're going to succeed because that's how you saw them when you were trying to figure out, how do I get around the bad report card? Oh, my goodness, did I really get that girl pregnant? I can't believe my parents caught me with a 6-pack of beer. Whatever it is, whatever it is. So that's thing number one. But in that process of hitting that nostalgia rush, you are also taking the time to think about something else and figure out what you want to do. Even if it's a computer game. Cards and dice, yes. You write down the lineup, you print the lineup, you put the ratings on the sheet, you figure out on the computer how you want to be lined up. If it's a real game, is it the first game you went to with your grandfather or your uncle? Was there a concert after the game? Did you get the cotton candy? Whatever it is, you're taking the time, stuff down, you're starting to process the information that's there. You're doing whatever is running the random number generator, whether it's dice or the computer program or whatever. You are taking the time to record or process what has happened in front of you, and you now have to figure out what to do next. You have successfully taken your mind off of whatever thing has happened to you, and it's now focused on trying to get the Dallas Cowboys to convert that 3rd and 5 against the hated New York Giants, who couldn't beat a fly in the late 70s, but Dallas was there. And I want to see Roger Staubach hit Drew Pearson in stride one more time. How do I do that? What play do I call? How do I stop Wilbert Montgomery from getting loose in my secondary? How do I get Isaiah Thomas to do a pick and roll with Bill Laimbeer? What do I have to roll to get that? He hit the shot. I record it. We move on. We're up 20 now on the Charlotte Hornets. And so on and so forth and that. And so your mind is moving in the right direction. You're thinking about something else. You're focusing on not only something that makes you happy, but you have to solve the puzzle, because all these sports games are puzzles. We're doing math. We're making a story by doing math. But 14-year-old Ron couldn't do algebra to save his life. Now does it pretty much for a living. Figure out, solve for X. Does this player beat this rating? Yes. Then you go on and do X. Add 8 and roll the dice to see what happens. Oh, that's algebra? Yes. That's not how it was explained to you when you were 14 years old. And so, yes, the mental health aspect of taking your mind off of what's going on around you, comforting yourself with whatever it is that makes you comfortable, thinking about how to move forward and how to win, because in those situations when you're playing to relieve stress, you aren't necessarily going, well, let's pull out 2 teams I have no idea who that is. You're taking out the game that makes you the most comfortable in playing it. It might have been something you played at 14 or something that you discovered later that goes, yep, I can see this going on in my mind's eye, let's do it, and doing it. And for that 45 minutes to an hour to maybe 2 hours, depending on the sport, or 10 to 15 minutes if quick play games are what you do, you're thinking about something else, you're focusing on something else, you're relaxing, and maybe, just maybe, the first inklings in your head of how to navigate to the next part of your situation is forming. How do you declutter the next part? How do you get over the immediate anger of whatever bad thing happened to you, or the crushing stress of whatever it is? A bad day at work, you got a parent going through some dementia issues, you got a spouse that is really not happy with you. For that short period of time, you're focusing on something else, and you might be eating, and again, we all stress eat and all that, but you're focusing, you're thinking, you're moving forward in that process, win or lose, and your mind starts to relax. And that argument you might have had about the project at work, about, how do we do the 100,000 in sales when we only did 37,000? You might get the idea. You relax. You take deep breaths. Oh yeah, gaming, if that's your hobby, is mental health is very important for making your mental health better. Because as dudes, we don't want to talk about this stuff to anybody. Did you have a good day, honey? Yeah, I had a great day. I need to get my LinkedIn resume, up to date, but yeah, I had a good day. And so, long story short, yes, gaming, if that's your hobby, and mental health is two things that go together, because you can find your happy place. We have friends who would model railroads. If you pop in a favorite movie, you might have seen Dirty Dancing 775 times and understand that no one puts Baby in a corner except for Baby herself. That's not for here nor there. Did you know that Jennifer Grey and Matthew Broderick had an affair? That's not also for here nor there. But you think about it, you can say the lines, you've memorized them. You might get into an argument on a Facebook group after about whether she looked better before or after her nose job, or what should you do with the 14th deck of the Enterprise D, or which Doctor Who doctor was better at exterminating Daleks. But again, whatever it is, or you do fan fiction. You just get your mind thinking about something else, and the second that you can focus on the thing, even for a short period of time, that's not the immediate need, as long as you're not in danger, then you're going to get better. You're going to start to heal. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. You thought about it. You spent some quality time with yourself, which is important, or with a friend playing a game, along with those who helped shape who you are growing up. And so nothing wrong with that for your own mental health. So the next time you get stressed, again, don't pull out the Too Many Men on the Ice. Or if you live in Boston, Bucky Dent isn't your friend. Play the Blue Jays instead. I'm Ron Juckett. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you the next time.